Hi there, welcome. I am here with Corrine. My name is Christy Russ, and I call myself the Maverick Pharmacist Functional Medicine Health Coach. And most people don't know what functional medicine is, so let me explain. It's figuring out the underlying reasons for why you're not feeling great, and then I help you fix those, which not only gets you looking and feeling great now, but prevents future issues from cropping up. And those fixes are mostly non-medicine kind of things. So that's why I call myself the Maverick Pharmacist. The thing is, it's infinitely more effective than standard medicine, which I know from having been in that space for almost 30 years. And the strategies that I teach people help you lose the weight permanently, stop constant pain, have lots of energy, as well as stop most other health issues that are interfering with your life. Honestly, pretty much every health issue can be fixed with a few simple strategies. And the best part is there's nothing complicated about what you need to do. You just need to know the actual right things to do. So that's me, and I will let Corrine introduce herself.
Well, hello and welcome, and thank you, Christy. My name is Corinne McNally, and I'm a hormone yoga therapy teacher. So I teach people how to balance their hormones in a natural, holistic, unmedicated way. Now, those hormone imbalances can be everything from having trouble getting pregnant, staying pregnant, to symptoms that you might be experiencing in postmenopause. This is a simple technique. It consists of 21 yoga postures. It was founded by a woman named Dina Rodriguez about 30 years ago, and I'm a certified teacher, one of very few in North America. So we've decided to come on together to talk about hormones. What are hormones? Why do hormones become unbalanced? And together, how can we fix them
Exactly.
in a
I think
holistic manner?
exactly right. Well, and I think we should clarify when we're talking hormones, it's not just menopause, estrogen kind of stuff. Like I think that's what people
No.
always assume with that. There's your body has tons of hormones. We got the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Those are the
Testosterone.
big sex hormones, and then thyroid, of course. Cortisol is the stress hormone.
Hmm.
Insulin, those are all hormones. And then the problem is when one gets thrown off, it throws another one off. That's just kind of how hormones go. And then it throws another one off. So
Yeah,
everything kind of needs to be in balance. That's the key.
exactly. And in hormone yoga therapy, we often refer to that balance as doing a waltz and the give and
Oh, I
take.
like that.
Yeah, and so it's like you move this way and you move this way and you move this way and you move this way. And sometimes there's a little bit of a bumpy road in those movements, and but in an ideal situation we want the waltz to be smooth and give and take. And so we want our estrogen to be in balance with our progesterone, to be in balance with our testosterone, so that our levels aren't too high. And this is the beautiful dance.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's a great analogy. I like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So then what people kind of need to know is that there's, again, it's not just the typical hormones, there's the typical symptoms that most people think about, especially when we're talking women. They're thinking like the typical menopause symptoms, like the hot flashes, the PMS, the mood swings, and period issues.
Insomnia, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Actually, I
so
just saw a list. I just saw a list, and I mean, I know you know the list, but most people they think about the most common ones. But when you think about it, I think there's
oh gosh,
80,
yes.
like somewhere like 80 symptoms, and so it's crazy to think that our bodies can have these symptoms, and often the diagnosis can be really far away from, oh, it's a hormonal imbalance. The diagnosis can be something else. And I'm sure you've seen that as your time as a pharmacist
Yes,
with,
for sure. Well,
with,
even I think more with the health coaching, like people, are
Ah,
surprised they come and they're like, oh no, I don't have hormonal issues, I don't have hot flashes or whatever. But
yeah,
they are tired most of the time. They've got brain fog. They're having trouble losing weight or they keep gaining more weight. They got
yeah.
food cravings, sleep problems, especially that waking up
Acne.
in the middle of the night thing too, right?
Yes,
Yeah, acne,
yes.
the thinning hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, like those are just super common things. And you wouldn't necessarily associate those with hormones. And quite often that's what it is.
Right. So from your perspective, Christy, when somebody comes to you and you do your intake and it looks like there is a hormonal imbalance, um, what on your end do you, if obviously they're coming to you because they want a non-medicated approach, right? They want a holistic approach.
Mhm.
What happens next?
Well, there's a process, right? And even if it's, you know, definitely there's hormone issues. The thing with that whole um, having to be in balance and it all affects each other. If
Mm-hmm.
you get, I would say the biggest killer of hormones is stress.
Stress, number
and
one.
yeah, and when I say that, I mean both there's the mental stress that everybody normally associates with it, and then there's the physical
Yeah,
stressors. And
yeah,
so the physical stressors are anything from um, what are you eating? Do you have enough nutrients for your body to work properly? Are you exercising enough? Are you exercising too much? Are you sleeping? That those are kind of those are the four of the five pillars that
right.
people aren't getting right, that I've kind of narrowed it down to. And the fifth pillar is hormone balancing. But
Yeah,
a thing is that if you get the other four right, the hormones tend to balance themselves. So I never start with the hormones. We usually start with the foods and the nutrients, and because people are just eating what they can think is a healthy diet, and it's really the opposite of what they should be doing. So.
yeah. And I mean, I've seen that a lot in my work. So, as a hormone yoga therapy teacher, we don't discuss so much diet and food intake, but we may look at times of eating. And so, with so many, I mean, whether you call them fad diets or not, out there, and for whatever reason, I think women are more susceptible to like, I'm going to do the keto diet
Mhm,
because I can possibly lose 20 pounds in X number of weeks, or I'm going to intermittently fast. And then we kind of talk about, well, is intermittent fasting for you? If you
mhm,
get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and have to be at work by 8:39 or 8 o'clock 9, and you don't eat till 11 o'clock, you are stalling your metabolism. Like
mhm,
you need, but I think there's a lot of information out there that is really interesting and it's really good, but it might be for the masses, and it's not an individual approach to, especially when it comes to fueling ourselves. I mean, I did paleo, I tried keto, I've tried almost everything. Intermittent fasting, oh, I'm going to go 16 hours without refueling, and wasn't ideal. It wasn't an ideal situation for me personally. It might be for someone else. So I'm sure from your end of things, you can guide people in that aspect of not only ideas of what to eat, but when to eat.
mhm. Yeah, for sure. There's no, like intermittent fasting can be a good strategy for a lot of people. But if
Yeah.
you're in a certain situation, and especially people that have been under a lot of stress for a long time, are and kind of have that, if you're like constantly tired and you know it's from physical stressors or whatever, and you're kind of at that, you've hit that wall and you
Yeah.
basically feel like you need caffeine to just even get through the day, those people do not do well with the intermittent fasting, or usually even keto, just because it's not eating is a stressor on the body, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're mostly have things dialed in, like that can be a good stressor, because our bodies do need to be, you know, be adaptable. And so having subjecting yourself to a certain amount of stress once in a while is a good thing, because then your body's able to deal with stuff that's getting thrown at you. But if you've already been dealing with so much stuff and your body's been fighting it off for years, it's just too much. It becomes the straw that broke the camel's
Yeah.
back, and you're making matters much worse. And then
Yeah.
you're going further into that hormonal imbalance. So
Yeah. And then often what I have witnessed is, insomnia is worse,
mhm,
weight gain,
right.
hair thinning.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
body's all about survival. And if you kind of know that and kind of inherently, I guess maybe you have to have some idea of how the body works and stuff too. But like, it's never about like the gaining the weight the body's not fighting against you. It's trying to help you survive. And so when you have
Yeah.
all that, that's why you get that belly, the belly fat and stuff, because that's where all your organs are. Your body's going to ramp down
And
your
protect it. Yeah.
metabolism to
Got to
protect,
protect those organs.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you do all that and kind of eat the right things and make sure there's enough nutrients there and do all that stuff that you need to do. That's what I was saying. Like the four pillars tend to balance the hormones, because now all of a sudden things yeah, come into balance. And I was going to say with because I mean, really, if you're talking like most of the people watching this are probably thinking more of the menopausal type of symptoms, like the hot flashes and things like that.
Perimenopause.
And
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you, if you're under, anytime, the body can either make stress hormone or it can make sex hormones. It can't do both, and it always favors the stress hormone, because the stress hormone is
Cortisols.
about survival.
Yeah.
So, if you're busy making cortisol, you aren't going to make any estrogen or progesterone
Yeah.
or testosterone. And that's
Yeah.
so you need to get yourself out of that fight or flight inflammatory space, so that your body can be more in the rest and digest anti-inflammatory space.
Yeah.
And then suddenly your body isn't going to need to make all this cortisol, and now that pathway will move to making all of the sex hormones. It's
In
where
in in hormone yoga therapy, we often use the word boost. So it's a technique to calm down the cortisol levels and boost the hormone levels so that things start functioning and at a level where they're balanced and symptoms alleviate, often very quickly, sometimes within a couple of days, which is
nice.
miraculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing though, like it doesn't take long. The body, well, when you're doing natural things, like sometimes it takes a little bit longer than some people would expect, because we're used to I'm going to take a pill and
Overnight.
yeah, and there it is, right? But the body, like if you let the body heal itself, it takes a little bit longer, but then you're not only are you feeling better where you were, but all of the other, any future issues don't come up, like if
Yeah.
you can get it working the way it's supposed to, it's like it's like, oh, like things are things are working really well.
Well, I just had a thought when you were saying that, something to do with working really well, get the hormones working really well. It came and it left,
Oh,
but
okay.
it'll come back again. It was
Okay,
just
it'll
one of
come
those
back.
it was just one of those hiccups. I think, oh, I know what I was going to say is that, um, a lot of people also, I've been playing around with this whole premise of motivating my clients. And I've come sort of to a heart-centered conclusion that my job is not to motivate people. That motivation has to come from inside and within.
Mhm.
My job is to well teach them the sequence to balance their hormones and feel better, but also to remind them that consistency equals results.
Bingo.
Consistency. If there was a week of the day
Mhm.
of the week that started with a C, because Monday we think of Monday motivation, but if there was a
Okay.
day of the week that began with the letter C, it would be I would call it consistency. And so whatever we're looking at, so this is what my forte is, it consistency equals results.
Nice.
Diet, same time at eat, regular meals, go to sleep at a regular time, wake up, have a routine. Consistency equals results.
Mhm.
And I know that, we're in stressful times right now. And I mean, we've had stressful times for quite a while, even, in pre 2 years ago. It's just stressful. Or if you're raising children, you work full time, you have a stressful job, you are sandwich generation, so you've got aging parents. There's a lot on our plates at certain times of our life, and no wonder things go on the back burner and out of whack. Child gets sick, parent gets sick, all of a sudden you're not sleeping, you're not eating at the right time, you're grabbing quicker meals, that don't take as much time to cook or whatever, right? So, yes, in a perfect world, it would be great to be able to have all of this in line. And what I try to teach people is that think small and think in increments, and think or see the word consistency. And usually things will fall into place that
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I was thinking, well, like when you were saying that, the consistency, one thing I drill into my clients is that it's not about deprivation, it's not about
No.
willpower, it's about
Ex-
what you do most of the time. So there's always like the 80-20 rule pretty much applies to
yeah.
this as well. So if
Yeah.
it's what you do most of the time. Because I know so many, and like you said, you're not motivating, but I've had to talk people down where they get this mindset that okay, they're going on a diet, which I think is a stupid word. It's really just
Yeah.
learning how your body works and choosing the foods that work with it. And it's not rocket science, it's just knowing the right information. But
Hmm.
and then you do that most of the time, and then you know what, when you go out with your friends and when you go into birthday parties or you're doing or you just feel like it, have the piece of cake, have the glass of wine. There's always
Yeah.
room for all
Nothing
of the things that we would inherently call unhealthy, right?
or
You still,
forbidden.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
like
nothing's
it's life,
forbidden.
live it,
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Yeah. Really, that is I know lots of people who they've lived their whole life coastering,
Mhm.
and it's it's probably been a detriment in the long run. So,
Oh, it always make well, like you said, I mean, because it does, it lowers your every time you do the sort of calorie restriction or the tons of exercise or
well,
whatever.
or just forbidden, like
Yeah,
forbidden,
yes.
you
Like
know,
I always, if you're not willing, if whatever you're doing, you're not willing to do forever, then
yeah,
walk away. That's not the right choice for you.
yeah,
So that which is why I mean keto can be great, but most people it's completely unrealistic.
yeah, for most people. Yeah,
Like it's kind of tough to live in our society and sort of eat that way indefinitely, and you really
yeah,
kind of can throw like there are good points about it, and a keto-ish food plan is fairly a good idea, right?
yeah, or
We could all stand
paleo-ish,
to
or
do less sugar and less carbs,
yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like we're
Cool.
digressing. Let's go back to the hormone part of things because this is how our conversations always go. Um, so because a lot of people, a lot of women, especially, when they get into that, age, the perimenopause, menopause, and they're like, okay,
Hmm.
and they start having those symptoms, they're like, okay, I need hormonal replacement.
Right.
And so this is what prompted our idea to do this because
Yeah.
we started talking about hormonal replacement. I'm like, we should stop talking because people want to hear this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
um, so really with the whole, like I said, people come to me and they have hormonal issues and they think, okay, and I am certified to do bioidentical hormonal replacement.
Okay.
Um, and but I rarely use it. I bet you a handful of times have I ever actually gone that route.
Hmm.
And generally speaking, it's only as a crutch when the symptoms are quite bad and like you need to sleep to get better. And if it's causing sleep issues, then we can kind of do that. And it's only meant to be for a short few months while
Right.
you're kind of working on all the other stuff.
Transitioning. Hmm.
Yeah, like when I did the certification for the bioidentical hormonal replacement, I was like, oh, this is the way of the future. Like it's not something to be scared of. Like if you're gonna do hormonal replacement, and you probably won't want to. We're going to tell you why it's not the answer, but you do want to do bioidentical for sure, and all that means is that it's this whatever you're taking, cream, putting on, however you're doing it, is exactly the same um, molecule that your body would be making. So you're not introducing any foreign thing that your body doesn't know really what to do with and that kind of thing. So that for sure, if you're going to do hormonal, it has to be bioidentical. But so that was kind of my journey started where I'm like, oh, well, there's a need for this and people have been asking me about it and I'll go do this. And I took the course and it was great. And because a lot of the risks, not all of the risks go away when you do bioidentical versus the traditional pharmaceutical treatment.
So I just back up for a second, Christy.
Mhm.
So the bioidentical does it come in the same forms as regular HRT? So it comes in the cream, the patch. Like how
Um,
can people, like, what are
well,
the
there are
different forms?
some originally, like years ago, you kind of had to get it at a compounding pharmacy, like it had to get made up. It didn't really exist. And a lot of the creams still have to be made up. There are some commercially available, um, like progesterone. There's a good oral version of that. There isn't really any good. Well, you would never want to take estrogen orally. There's
Right.
problems that happen when you do it that way. If you're ever going to do estrogen, it's got to be a cream or a patch or something like that. And there is a and I'm here in Canada. I don't know what happens
Other
in the
places.
States, but there is now a bioidentical cream. It's kind of meant to be more of a vaginal use. But other
Right.
than that, like oh no, and there's estrogel. Yeah, there is a gel. That one's been out
Yeah.
for a while. My issues with the estrogen ones, like the progesterone oral thing, I've used it. I do actually think it's pretty good for to help you sleep. When you take it orally, it does kind of have some nice sedative side effects, so that does help. And it's a normal dosing. Like it's pretty tough to overdose with that. The estrogen, the gels that are available, the commercially available ones, it's such a high dose that it's tough to use. If I've ever had to use it with somebody and they needed to have it covered by their plan or whatever for insurance, then it's because it's quite a bit less expensive. Have them apply it like once every 4 days or 5 days, because it's if you did it every day and the suggestion is 1 to 2 pumps a day, And then what ends up happening, and this is what I discovered when I came out of my bioidentical hormonal course thinking, okay, here we go. And a couple of people I started on the biased and we did the topical ones, and I did fairly low, and they felt amazing within the month. And after a couple months, symptoms were starting to come back. We kind of cranked me or up the dose a little bit, and then that just kept happening. And then I started looking into it, and then it got to the point where I was like, I'm not comfortable with continuing to prescribe these huge, like higher and higher doses, because I mean, I'm not a doctor, but that whole first do no harm thing was really
Yeah.
weirding me out, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
God, if somebody got breast cancer or some kind of cervical cancer or something from something that I'm prescribing for, that's a non-emergent issue,
I
like it
mean,
would feel
and
horrible, right?
so just to back up, so this would
Yeah.
be like a gel they apply on their vagina?
No, the estrogel is kind of meant to be like, it's a whole like hormonal replacement. So you put it usually like inner arm, inner thigh kind of thing, and it gets absorbed into the skin, and it gets through your whole system, and it's going everywhere. The vaginal creams and stuff are more meant um, for vaginal symptoms, right? Like, so the dryness
Dryness.
and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and
When
or
sex, it hurts.
incontinence, that kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
And to be honest, those are really considered topical, and they don't get into your bloodstream
Bloodstream?
so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people still need those. And as far as hormonal replacement goes, like, I'm on board with that. And I think if you're needing that, but again, it's kind of a crutch. Like, if you get it all figured out, and then your body should be making its own, but it might take a good year or so for the vaginal symptoms to kind of go away. I don't know if that's with Corinne's thing, like maybe not with your hormonal yoga, that might not actually be the case. But I stopped doing that, because what happens with just as a explanation, because I always like to know
Yeah.
why things happen, and I think it's more important for people to
Understand, yeah.
understand it, and then that's why it's maybe not the best choice to just jump into the hormonal replacement, because what happens is, like, as you're getting into menopause and perimenopause, like the sex hormone levels go down gradually. It doesn't just stop, right? And the way the receptors, like, you've got the estrogen, you've got a receptor, and they go together. And then as there's less estrogen all the time, there's less of that, and your hormones the receptors downregulate. But then all of a sudden, if you start supplementing, and like supplementing as in giving more of it however you are, then all of a sudden there's all this estrogen, and then the hormones will downregulate even further because it's too much, right? Like,
It doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. And then you get less and less receptors, and then that's why you have to have the dose has to keep going up and up and up, for you to have that same effect. And when we were talking before, I mentioned to Kareem, like, in the pharmacy, like, I see these 75, 80-year-old women on these massive doses of estrogen and progesterone, because that's where they've got to. And
they've maybe been on it for 15, 20 years.
And they've tried to get off, and they've tried to wean off slowly, and they get to a certain point, they're like, nope, I can't do it. And then it starts.
They're just on it.
So,
right.
So,
and then as far as I mean, I have read extensively about side effects, and some of the stuff that I've read now is being ixnayed or disputed, that it was like from the studies that were inconclusive from the late 90s, early 2000s, where there may be a higher chance of estrogen fueled breast cancer, higher chance of hemorrhagic strokes. I mean, those are sort of, those are obviously the worst case type of
Mhm.
side effects, but are they, what are your thoughts on those? And then what are just the side effects that, that every pharmaceutical has a list of, like, may cause dry mouth, may cause dizziness, may make, like those kind
Mhm.
of, like, are there
Well, I
side
mean,
effects?
so the thing is, like the whole, I mean, when I was in pharmacy, which was, yeah, like 30 years ago, the hormonal replacement was like a thing that you did. And
Everybody,
more,
yeah,
yeah, like it was, but there it was just Premarin and Provera, which is um and they were definitely, they're not bioidentical at all.
yeah,
And then but but they showed the studies and stuff, and it was like, oh yes, even if you get breast cancer, you will still live longer. And it was more about the heart health and stuff like that.
yeah,
Anyways, then that whole I think it was the nurses study, and I think, yeah, it was like late 90s or whatever that came
yeah,
out, and it was like, oh my gosh, that's not, there's no cardiovascular benefits, and everybody, and it's increasing your risk of, cancer and this and that and the other thing, right? And so nobody did hormonal replacement anymore,
yeah,
and which was fine. And then the bioidentical kind of came into things, and it really
yeah,
is like that. And that's where I said, if you were going to go that route, you would have to do bioidentical, because if you the problem was with the synthetic ones were, or the Premarin was like pregnant mare's urine. That's where they
yeah,
got came
yeah,
from. And it was
yeah,
all these estrogens that your body's never seen before. And so the liver, and it was causing, and the metabolites from that were causing, like, hanging around and not getting um, um, like excreted, and your
it's
liver
flushed
has to
out,
deal with all
yeah,
of this stuff. Yeah. So it
yeah,
was, and then that's where it was causing. So then they finally, there were studies came out where they did kind of a head to head with the bioidentical versus the regular
yeah,
hormonal. And it was like, oh yes, if you do it, you know all of these issues that we thought were a problem, it actually goes away. And so unless you have, that estrogen positive or progesterone positive um, susceptibility, then
yeah,
there really wasn't any increased risk of the breast cancer or but the thing is, most people haven't done those genetic tests, right? So
exactly,
so
yeah,
you know but so my thing is, like, it's been if you're using bioidentical and you're doing it at a physiological level, there really shouldn't be side effects. And so that's where, like I said, the standard, what they would do for hormonal replacement, like the doses, let's say, would be here.
mm-hmm,
And because that's what a, maybe healthy 20-year-old or whatever, that's what their levels are, right? But you're here in your perimenopause, but is where, most people feel well, and maybe your levels are here. So we would, you just do it to bring it up. And it should really just be symptoms is all you should be looking at. You're not treating to labs, although you do want to look at labs and make sure they don't go, higher than they should, right? But
yeah,
you're
yeah,
really, like, if the tiniest little bit of progesterone is going to help you sleep and takes and gives that balance, because that's part of the issue during that perimenopause. The progesterone tends to fall first. So then what you end up
yeah,
with is this estrogen dominance. That's where that came
yeah,
from, right? So the
yeah, yeah,
estrogen, and progesterone are balanced, and
art,
the progesterone does this. And
yeah,
so if you don't need estrogen, and then that's where the problem is. People think, oh, I need estrogen, I have hot flashes, and then now the imbalance is even higher.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So just having that tiny little bit of progesterone might be enough to get you sleeping, and having some of those hot flashes and stuff to go away. But that's not the end. It's not like, oh, okay, good, I've taken this pill and now my symptoms are gone. No, that's the beginning of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And then because if you ever, because all the other things that caused your hormones to be unbalanced in the first place are still there.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you want to take this thing forever, you really want to deal with that whole underlying problem, and then you don't need it anymore.
Yeah, that would be the best case scenario.
Mm, yeah.
Well, that's really good information and education as well. Um, so, from a hormone yoga therapy perspective, um, I see people coming to me from infertility right
Mm,
through to postmenopause and everything in between. So, irregular periods, period problems, PMS, which lies in that period problems, acne, and then everything in between. So we do not ask people to go for a hormone level wellness check or anything like that. Sometimes people will come to like, I have an intake form, and I have sort of like the top 15 or 20 symptoms on a scale of 0 to 3, and they fill that out. I don't include 80 symptoms. It's sort of like the top 15. And
mm,
some people know, like they've done the Dutch test, or they've done a holistic look at their hormones, and they know where they're low or where they're high. But hormone yoga therapy doesn't work in a way that we're going to do these postures for anybody who's estrogen dominant, and these postures for if it's a thyroid issue.
mm,
It's a complete unit, so it's 21 postures. And the number one thing that I have noticed people comment is that their sleep is back within 2 weeks of practice. They're
yeah.
shocked that they're
Mm,
sleeping, like they're actually sleeping and not waking up in the middle of the night.
yeah.
Um, and then hot flashes and night sweats are close behind. PMS sometimes goes away within within a cycle or two. I have ladies get pregnant who've gone for 4 to 6 rounds of IVF and have been
Wow.
told that there's nothing more we can do. Sorry.
Oh, boy.
And it's
Yeah.
expensive, right? So IVF, I
Oh,
think it's probably $10,000
oh, I
I
don't
mean,
even know, but I know it's a lot.
yeah, and this has worked.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's,
and again, it's getting the body, like, again, you're doing things that are getting the body to heal itself. And
yeah,
that's where I don't like doing the hormonal replacement, and why I rarely do. Like I said, I bet you it's
last
maybe
resort
five
sort of
people out
thing.
of the hundreds, right? So
Yeah,
because it's the same deal. Like when we get them eating the right foods, when we get them,
yeah,
with the right nutrients so that their body's working properly, it's the same deal. Like usually within the week, yeah, I would say a week to 2 weeks, people are like, wow, yeah, I'm sleeping way better. And so,
hmm,
when you do that, and the hot flash, again, the hot flashes take a little bit longer, but it's and why wouldn't you do that? Because the bonus, which is the same with your hormonal yoga, is that, if that's going on, then that means the body is working well.
yeah.
And then all of the other, health woes that people just think are normal parts of it, like it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, one thing that I like to remind people that, you know, this technique is working on the endocrine system, but you'll also tone your middle, tone your belly, tone your bum, your buttocks. You get a good stretch for your legs and your hamstrings. It entails a lot of breath work, and then breath work combined with postures.
Mm.
And included in all of that are guided relaxation techniques. And so when
Right.
people are, yeah, so when people are at that level where their cortisol levels are through the roof and they can't even slow down enough, or even like if they, I'm going to try to meditate, and but that's not working. For
Mm.
some reason this works. And I didn't really know this until I started. I mean, I've been teaching yoga for 16, 17 years and teaching hormone yoga therapy for 5 years and practicing it for 6 years, but I didn't really understand the fact that so many women go really hard with exercise around ovulation and before their period. And then if they're over 40, they're like, I'm going to start running. I'm going to start, going hard with the exercise, which really counteracts what their hormones really need. So yes, we talk about needing to move the body and we need exercise, but there's also the right type of exercise.
Exactly.
And
And
I
most
mean,
people are doing it wrong. You're right. Most people are doing it totally wrong.
well, wrong in the way that I mean, weight bearing, like lifting
Yeah.
weights is good and stuff like
Yes.
that, but
For what their body needs. Yes.
for what their body needs at that time, if they're a menstruator still, so according to their cycle, and then if they're getting close, or their periods are now really erratic, or they're not in full menopause yet, but they're nearly there.
Hmm.
Yeah, we do need to exercise, but we need to do the right type of exercise. And so that's the beauty that I like to explain to people, that this is very different than a regular hatha yoga class. I love hatha yoga. I still teach it, and it's a great practice, but it doesn't necessarily address the the keeping and healing of the endocrine system and the sex hormones. And
Hmm.
so it's a really, like your approach, again, it's a really unique approach. I do have
Hmm.
some people, ladies, that tell me that they were on Bioidentical, they were on HRT, and their body didn't like it. Their body didn't like it.
Hmm.
One thing that I really remember a few ladies talking about is very tender breasts. Like,
Yeah.
just so obviously, to me, who's not certified in hormones like you are, but I think that is probably like their estrogen, maybe
Their
they're
estrogen was way too
too
high.
high, right?
Yeah.
And they're like 60 years old, or
Yeah.
55 to
Oh,
60
yeah.
years old, and they've got like the breast tenderness that you might
Mm.
feel, the first signs of pregnancy or whatever, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even the swelling.
Yes.
And I
Exactly.
had a couple ladies have some breakthrough bleeds when they went
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
HRT. Like, just obviously their
Well,
body isn't reacting. And so
mm,
again, as a reminder with hormone yoga therapy and our both of our offerings, is that there's really no bad side effects.
no.
Like, there's no bad side effects. And I have ladies say, well, I'm experiencing a little bit of leaking, or I sneezed and there's a little bit of leak, and I said, don't worry, a month of HYT, we're going to bring some strength and flexibility into that pelvic floor. I don't think HRT addresses pelvic floor stuff, or muscle strength, or
Hmm. No.
flexibility, right?
Well, that's the whole thing. Like you couldn't, like I mean, it's easy and people want the quick fix, but it's not really gonna get you what your real goal is.
For the long term.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's just, and then the whole thing is like, then okay, for now it's the hot flashes or the incontinence or whatever, and then 5 years from now, then it's your thyroid's flagging and you're thinning hair or what, like it's all of those things. Like we said, the hormones, all the body's completely um, regulated with hormones.
Yeah.
And that's why it's too hard to, because and they all are interconnected. So if you're going to put something here, it's going to throw all these off, and
Something
you
else.
don't even know, right? You don't
Yeah.
even know that that one got thrown off until, some years down the road or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think I was super excited. I had never heard of hormone yoga. So when I was introduced to Corinne's program, I was like, oh, it's amazing because, the hormones are so important. And I recommend yoga a lot of because most of my clients aren't exercising enough and they're already too stressed and they need something to de-stress. So I'm
Yeah.
always and have no time. So I'm like, okay, do yoga, then you're gonna kill two birds with one stone. And then if we can do yoga that also helps balance the hormones, well, that's a no-brainer to me. So
Yeah, you're exactly right. So,
yeah.
well, it
Oh,
was just
awesome.
awesome.
Why don't you let people know where they can find this,
Yeah.
your program, and I'll my you can go to for me since I'm
Yeah.
saying it. You can go to ChristyRussHealthCoaching.com. And Christy Russ is KRISTYRUSS. And there's I have a free masterclass if you want to kind of start there to see kind of kind of where I'm focusing on things, gives you tons of information on those 5
That's
principles that I was
great.
talking about, and including some real life simple tips. And then there you can also, on my website, you can access the online program that I have, or I have a little 12-day challenge to sort of, introduce you to the things if you don't want to fully commit to the online program too.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And I'm Corinne McNally, and my website, you can reach me at lotusmoonyoga.ca. And if you sign up, there's a link to sign up for hormone yoga therapy. And once you sign up, there's no obligation, but there are free previews. So you can watch the free previews. And also, there's another link that you can click on if you want to chat with me and book a one-on-one. We'll also have this all written down in the copy once we get it up there. So it was so nice chatting with you,
I
Christy. I
know
think
it
that we have a
was. I feel
lot
like we
of
could have gone on for another hour, but we'll
exactly.
let
I
people
mean,
go.
there's a lot of parallels, and I love that you have, I mean, we have to respect the science behind of all of this, but I
Mhm.
love when things are integrated and your whole expression of the maverick, the pharmacy end of things combined with the holistic end of things.
Right.
And yoga, a lot of people think yoga is um, uh, an exercise program, but yoga is actually based in science. Yoga is a
Oh
science.
yeah.
It's part of the sciences, and people are really surprised when to hear that. So we kind of like, meshing the sciences together under a holistic umbrella.
Exactly. Yes.
So,
Fixing
all
the
right.
underlying problem. That's my mantra.
Exactly. Well, thank
Good.
you so much, everybody, and hope you enjoyed the chit chat with us.
Okay.
Bye for
Take care.
now.